Hello, I'm Elaine Ruska at Mary Martin Gallery. Abstract paintings and abstraction gained popularity in the major and most important art centers in Europe and the United States during the 50s. It had a tremendous impact on Cuban artists who enthusiastically embraced the movement. It actually became a national genre, Cuban abstraction. Today, Jose Brousson is one of the artists that truly represents the history of Cuban abstraction, and we are very happy to have Jose's paintings here in our gallery and represent him. We're also very happy when art lovers and art collectors drop in at one of our galleries to say hello, see what's new, or what we just hung on one of our gallery walls. Today we have Robert C., who is known for his very interesting art collection, and we're happy to have Robert here. Say hello, and
Hi,
haven't
Elaine.
seen you for a few weeks or so.
I try to get here once a month. Sometimes it's difficult, but I wouldn't miss it for the world. And I love the new pieces and all that are being shown. How amazing.
What do you think about Cuban abstraction and versus the Cubism? Because many people look at these and automatically think Cubism.
Well, it certainly has aspects of Cubism. Cubism is sort of the father of many different art movements in the 20th century. And certainly abstract expressionism or abstract art is one of the children of the Cubist movement. If you look at the painting here behind us, you can see aspects of Cubism with the shape of the circles up here, reminiscent of the cylinders that Picasso and Braque used. You can also see where we have other geometric forms that have been integrated into the piece, as well as if you look at the way that the textures have been added, they reinforced the design, if you will, that abstract design, but the geometric shapes as well. It sort of echoes that theme within the piece. Cubism itself only was actually fairly short-lived. It was from about 1907 to 1914.
And I've wondered why we all know the names of Impressionist artists, but yet when one mentions Cubism, everyone immediately thinks Picasso and Braque, and that's it. Why is it, do you think, that it was not so widely accepted at that time?
Well, it has to do with how revolutionary it was. First of all, whenever you begin to think of a canvas and you begin to think of it representing two-dimensional figures rather than traditional imagery, it was very revolutionary. And what it boils down to is that the African mask from the sub-Saharan Africa were coming into Europe around 1885-ish, and certainly Picasso and Braque would have been influenced and have seen them, as was Matisse. So when Picasso and Braque looked at the mask and they saw the two-dimensionality of the mask, it immediately popped into their head to experiment. And this is where we begin to see the shards, if you will, where an item is deconstructed, and then basically you look at it, but you sort of look at it with your mind. You see it in parts and from different angles. And Cubism was born, and it was very revolutionary. And before you know it, you see Cubism expanding around the planet. The Russians adapted it. It was well suited for the revolutionary environment or the atmosphere after the Russian Revolution. The Italians adopted it as Futurism. We began to see it as Dadaism in the 1930s. But Cubism's here to stay. It is a dramatic interpretation of subject matter. And no matter if you go back and look at Cezanne, who died in 1906, I believe, but his work began to take on geometric aspects as well. And that's often why Picasso and them credited the Europeans more with Cubism than the Africans. But personally, I think if you look at the evidence and you look at the mass that came in, the Africans were the one that really fueled the idea. of
Inspired
Cubism.
it.
Absolutely. So moving back into talking about Cuba, though, we have around this time of the 1950s, we have artists who were also influenced by Picasso. Wilfredo Lam, who was one of the prominent Cuban artists of the day on the international scene, would have also been working with abstract pieces and inserting different elements of actually traditional African voodoo type symbols into it. But if you look here at Bruzan, he certainly has created some amazing things, and definitely you can see the Latin inspiration. If you go to Brazil, you'll see pieces that are not probably as nice as this, but in the same genre. And it's just lovely, absolutely lovely.
So now you can see why we love when Robert C. drops by our gallery. But before we let you move around the gallery to see what else is new, your collection, I mentioned your collection. How about some advice to art lovers who are just now starting to build or amass a collection such as yours? What advice would you give?
Well, first of all, I would advise you to decide what you want to collect. For example, in Colorado, when I lived there was a man that I knew who collected only local Colorado artists. He collected from around the 1940s, 50s up to about the 1980s. And before you knew it, his collection was the preeminent collection of local Colorado artists, and museums were allowing him, were inviting him to show the collection to the public. And he absolutely had a treasure trove. In Charleston, if you look at the Gibbs Museum, their emphasis is on Charleston art that's tied to the Low Country. So again, I would ask you to examine your home, the space that you're going to hang it in, what your personal interests are, and then I would develop, if you would, sort of a parameters, like that you could work within by subject matter or by location or by theme. Then absolutely, hands down, you need to go and you need to establish a personal relationship with a gallery. There are many fine galleries in Charleston, but Mary Martin has my heart, and I will tell you that they will advise you, they will sit there, they will listen to you, they will maybe even go out and look at your space, but they will help you to develop a powerhouse of a collection, to identify artists that are not only local, but on the international and regional scenes as well. So having that relationship and that trust between you and a gallery is absolutely critical to building a powerhouse collection.
Well, Robert, we're just so happy that you happened to drop in when we were hanging the new Jose Bruzan paintings. And we'd be happy, as Robert said, to help you build a dynamic art collection. So come into one of our galleries. We have two galleries, one on Broad Street and one here at the Belmont Charleston Place Hotel. We'll be very happy to work with you.